Welcome to another episode of SpitBallin. I'm your host AJ, and alongside me as always is my co-host Christian. And on this episode of the show, we will be talking about some major news surrounding LeBron James heading potentially to the Miami Heat. It is just a rumor, but we will be discussing it. We'll talk about how Victor Wembanyama has been announced as the cover athlete of NBA 2K, and we'll be diving into much more as the NFL had some pretty big contract extensions, and in the media world of the NFL and NBA, we did see ESPN lay off a decent amount of their media personalities. As always, you can listen to Spitball in most places you find podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok under the handle @PodSpitballin. That is @POD Spitballin. And as always, we are going to jump into the NFL news first. Two big contract extensions / restructures occurred this past week. Jordan Brooks with the Miami Dolphins signs a 3-year, $51.3 million deal to stay with Miami. I believe this is a great signing for Miami, as Jordan Brooks is a young piece on their defense who really has developed into a phenomenal inside linebacker. He was one of the top tackle leaders in the NFL last year for the Dolphins. He also has really developed into a great coverage linebacker, really able to guard the entire middle of the field, in my opinion, and even man up on some of the better tight ends in the NFL. Brooks had a rocky start to his career and has now ended up finding a home in Miami. Christian, what do you think about the Dolphins locking down Jordan Brooks long term?
It's funny that you said rocky start, because I remember him coming into the league as a rookie. He was so high, and then he kind of took a dip his last 2 years in Seattle, which was surprising because of how well he came into the league. And then Miami basically got him. I think it was for a very low deal, I'm pretty sure. And now he's played elite the past 2 years, and now I'm pretty sure he's a top 5 paid linebacker in football. So it's well deserved for him, and he'll definitely be the cornerstone for the Dolphins for their future.
Yeah, I do believe that Brooks really is just one of those cases of he just found the right home now with the Dolphins and will succeed there. Very similar to Ernest Jones in a sense, where he was on the Rams, Titans, and now finally have found a home on Brooks' first team, the Seattle Seahawks. And these are just two young linebackers that really had so much potential, as you mentioned with Brooks coming out of college. Did not show it at first, but have now really developed into some of the best young linebackers in the league. And moving on now to an older player, Alvin Kamara restructures his deal with the New Orleans Saints. Alvin Kamara, a player that a lot of people believe could be done very soon, but he now restructures a deal with the Saints that now basically keeps him on the team for 1 year instead of 2 years. It was a 2-year deal that was then restructured into a 1-year deal where he's basically is getting everything paid up front and incentivized. So this is a deal basically now to allow Kamara to leave next year if he wants to, as the Saints did sign Travis Etienne from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I could very much see Kamara, if he is still looking to play next year, ending up on a new team, not being the New Orleans Saints. I do also believe that this is just smart for the Saints, as that was probably one of the worst contract extensions we've seen in recent history. The Saints paid Kamara a lot of money as an aging running back, and now they've signed Travis Etienne. They really don't need Alvin Kamara anymore. He was a great player. He will always be a Saints legend, I believe. That's a guy that I could really even see having his jersey retired for the Saints. Just he's been a staple of their franchise for a while and did very well in his prime for them. Obviously not able to win a Super Bowl with the team, but has definitely been a face of the franchise. Christian, what do you think about the Saints restructuring Kamara's deal to keep him in New Orleans for this season, but potentially now allowing him to leave next year?
I'm not shocked. I mean, basically, they brought in Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is now going to be their future at the running back position. And like you said, Kamara, I think Kamara was amazing when he was in his prime, when he was healthy. The past 2 years, unfortunately, he also hasn't been able to stay on the field, which is a big reason why they went out and got Travis Etienne. And like you said, aging running backs, the money doesn't really work out. It's very few. I think Derrick Henry might be the only one in this century, I think, that it's actually worked out for. But there's not many running backs like Derrick Henry. Alvin Kamara is a smaller back. So I don't know if he'll end up retiring in New Orleans or they'll bring him back on a cheaper deal. He'll go to a veteran team or he'll become a veteran on another young team trying to excel, but we'll see where his future holds. But it's looking like it won't be in New Orleans.
We will have to see what the future holds for Alvin Kamara, but we still have this year with him being a New Orleans Saint. I do think the backfield will be interesting with him and ETN. If you could use them as a two-headed monster, we could very much see a explosive backfield and almost a Alvin Kamara resurgence because of that. But last year just was not utilized enough for the amount of money they were paying him, and also just for the player he is. I do believe he still does have at least 1 or 2 more good years left in him, and the Saints just were not utilizing him like he was utilized under Sean Payton and with Drew Brees. And that is pretty much it for the NFL news this week. As we've said many times previous episodes, the NFL being past the draft, past free agency, the offseason does dry up. The last news for the NFL is that teams are reporting to camp. The Carolina Panthers and Arizona Cardinals are the only 2 teams out of the 32 that have reported officially as a full roster to camp, which includes rookies and veterans. Every other team has either had their rookies report to camp so far this week, and they have also had their veterans scheduled to report by the end of the week or the start of next week. We also, now moving into the NBA, are putting this episode out today on a Thursday because we did not want to miss out on the LeBron news. As you know, we usually go live on a Monday. We have sometimes gone live on a Tuesday if we also wanted to wait for some news to come out on that Monday, but it's typically a Monday or Tuesday. This week, we're coming at you on Thursday because of LeBron James. The World Cup came to a finale last Sunday, and a lot of people believe that LeBron James would then be signing Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday because all of the attention would be on him with the World Cup now being over. LeBron James is still yet to sign, but as I said in the introduction, there was a major rumor that has developed now surrounding LeBron James and the Miami Heat. Last night around 12 o'clock, so very late, Miami being on the East Coast right at midnight, the Heat's official YouTube channel put out a scheduled live stream for July 27th that would be introducing LeBron James back as a member of the Miami Heat. This quickly took social media by storm, all over Twitter, all over Instagram and TikTok, and a lot of fans believed, wow, LeBron James is going back to Miami. It is just now a matter of time till he confirms it himself. The Heat then came out and said that the post was an accident and that it was not meant to go live like that, as they were just preparing for the possibility of LeBron James coming back to the Heat, but there's nothing official yet from LeBron and the Heat. A lot of people are now making this a joke of an intern messed up, an intern accidentally put something out too early, but it could mean that LeBron James is going back to the Heat, and we will find something out on July 27th. Christian, what do you think about this leak from the Miami Heat? And do you think it was just preparation, or do you think that there is some real now steam of LeBron James heading back to the Miami Heat?
I thought it was a joke. I woke up to it and we just see, the Heat, Miami Heat posted something about LeBron, yada, yada, yada. I saw so many things on Instagram. I saw things on Twitter. And then I actually went to the Miami Heat YouTube page and I saw it and I was like, wow, this might. But at the same time, back in my head, I'm like, this has to be fake. This has to be either an accident or something. I don't think this means LeBron is going to Miami. Obviously, I do hope that he goes to Miami. But at the end of the day, I've heard so many different rumors when it comes to LeBron, whether it's his kids wanting to stay in LA or him wanting to reunite in Miami or even Cleveland or even Boston or everything. At this point, it could mean that someone really messed up at Miami. Like you said, it could have been an intern. Or it also could have just been just an accident, or it could have just been that they were preparing for him and then he changed his mind. So it could be a number of things, but it'll come down to I don't think LeBron will be saying anything for at least another month or so. To be honest, I think he's going to take his time with it.
I do agree that I do believe LeBron James will take a decent amount of time to sign. I could see it being towards the end of July, which would be July 27th pretty much. So I don't think he will drag it on though past July. If he gets into August, then you're getting into the NFL now and he'll be second. I mean, obviously the day LeBron James signs, he will not be secondary news to anybody. That will be the biggest thing on social media, at least for that entire day. But right now there is nothing going on in the sports world outside of regular season MLB games, and the MLS is starting back up, but that is pretty much it for American sports. So right now, if LeBron James wants the attention all on him and have all eyes on his decision, he will, I think, sign by the end of July, because once you get to August, the eyes are on the NFL and training camps, the Hall of Fame game, and preseason and fantasy drafts. So we will see what LeBron James does. And the last bit of NBA news, but not exactly the NBA itself, NBA 2K, Victor Wembanyama is gracing the cover of NBA 2K27. There was a lot of rumors and controversy around this, as this actually leaked during the NBA Finals that Victor Wembanyama would be the cover of 2K27. Then, during the release and hype up to the cover release, 2K was putting out tweets that very much showed off New York City. There was a lot of subway tweets, park tweets, just stuff that looked like New York City all in all. And a lot of Knicks fans on social media began to think, wow, all right, maybe they pivoted, and because Wemby lost the finals, which is what their decision-making could have been, that if he won, he would have been on the cover, that now it'll be Jalen Brunson. So a lot of fans were getting excited to potentially see the finals MVP, Jalen Brunson, on the cover. However, the leak was correct, and Victor Wembanyama is on the cover, which has now brought a lot of controversy. A lot of fans are upset that they're putting a player that all he did this year was win Defensive Player of the Year, which is true. We have seen the past two NBA 2Ks be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was the Finals MVP and MVP, and then the year prior to that be Jason Tatum, who was the Finals winner. So I really do believe that it probably should have been Jalen Brunson. I will give Knicks fans that. They've been, wrong about a lot of things in their years of predicting stuff, such as Kevin Durant and Kyrie to the Knicks way back in 2019. But I will give them this one. They definitely, I feel, are robbed of not having their star on the cover, as putting Wembanyama on it after a disappointing finals loss just doesn't feel right. It kind of feels weird. And we'll have to see what they do this year, though. Now, the San Antonio Spurs being the team that lost in the NBA Finals. The last 2K athlete, which I don't think there's really much of a cover curse for 2K like there is for Madden, as people joke around about. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander lost to the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. So we'll see if the Spurs are able to make it back to the finals, or then see the same fate as the previous 2K cover athlete, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and lose in the WCF. Christian, what do you think about Victor Wembanyama gracing the cover of NBA 2K? And do you also believe that it should have been somebody else, Jalen Brunson, or completely someone else?
I don't think they would have pivoted towards Jalen. I think Jalen Brunson's a phenomenal player, but I don't think he's 2K cover worthy. I think Wemby actually is 2K cover worthy. Just like I don't understand how Anthony Edwards hasn't been a cover athlete yet. I think I would say technically been one of the faces of the league the past few years. But I do believe Wemby is becoming the face of the NBA, or at least he's going to be. At least LeBron doesn't have that much time left. I think Wemby is going to officially assert himself as the face of the NBA. So I'm honestly not shocked that he's a 2K cover athlete. I think it's a little early, because he's 22 years old? I don't know what age most athletes are, and I'm happy that it's not. I feel like 2K, I don't think Madden does that. I think 2K, they've made it mostly if you win the finals, you get the cover, which I don't think it was like that, at least growing up for us as much as it is now. So I'm happy that they're pivoting towards someone who didn't win the finals, didn't win an MVP, but I still think they're very worthy of being a cover athlete.
I totally agree with that take of exactly. They've been handing it to people who just win finals, looking back at previous covers like Paul George, Kevin Durant, all guys that were on the cover before Paul George not winning a finals yet, but Kevin Durant then won finals later in his career, but at the time did not have any. So yeah, definitely going back maybe to that route of just giving it to players who are becoming the face of the league and also just rising stars. And as you said, Madden, yes, definitely does not do the cover athlete has to be the Super Bowl winner, as we did see Caleb Williams get announced as the Madden 27 cover athlete for this year's Madden. And diving into the last bit of sports news for today's episode, ESPN, as we stated before, has now laid off a lot of their media personalities. 3 of the biggest names that they have laid off are Ryan Clark, Tom Pelissero, and Cam Newton. Cam Newton was kind of in a, not I'd say full-time role, it kind of felt more like a part-time role. He would make some appearances on College Game Day, on First Take, but did not have his own show and did not appear on ESPN daily. So this is a big name being laid off, but I don't think something that really affects ESPN overall. And if you love Cam Newton as a media personality, he has his own show that he's had now for a couple of years and has been very good and successful with that. So I think he'll be remotely pretty much fine after getting laid off. The biggest shocks, though, were Ryan Clark and Tom Pelissero. Tom Pelissero being one of the NFL Network insiders alongside Mike Garofalo and Ian Rappaport. This is something I think we will see coming for the next couple of years. With ESPN acquiring NFL Network, they now officially own the network going into this year. We did not see any layoffs or changes last year because they just acquired them. I think it had to go through a vetting process. And now that they officially have acquired them, they're able to do stuff like this. And the Insiders was a very popular show on NFL Network that featured Pelissero, Garofalo, and Rappaport. Now Pelissero has been laid off. We will have to see if this is because now that they own NFL Network, is Adam Schefter just going to be put on that show with Ian Rappaport and Mike Garofalo? That's a very real possibility, and I could see happening. Or will they just take somebody that does NBA coverage or SportsCenter coverage and put them on the show? Or will it just be Garofalo and Rappaport? We'll have to see. Or this could completely mean that NFL Network's programming is completely changing. I think this is definitely the biggest thing to be worried about if you are a big NFL fan and an NFL Network fan, as ESPN has now officially started to shake up NFL Network, and I do believe this is just the start of personalities from NFL Network that will be laid off. And then finally, an ESPN personality, Ryan Clark was the biggest name to be laid off. Ryan Clark has had a lot of controversial moments, but also some good moments on ESPN. One of the biggest moments was when it was just him talking about the Damar Hamlin situation. It was just him, and he kept some excitement, possibly because the game was going to start up again. That night, by himself, on air, just talking to Scott Van Pelt about Damar Hamlin, the situation, and really gained a lot of love from that situation. That was really, I think, his first big moment on ESPN, and he then had some not so great big moments where he got into a fight live on air with Peter Schrager, calling him an analyst, but in a derogatory way, saying, "I'm a player, you're an analyst, you know nothing about football," as they were arguing about a take. So that was, I think, what led to his layoff. A lot of news has come out that that is where ESPN started looking into laying him off, as that's where it stemmed from, as they just did not want that type of personality that's kind of going to be controversial a lot and arguing not on a debate level with his colleagues, but on more of a personal level, calling out their repertoire for being an analyst instead of being a player. So I do believe that is why Ryan Clark was laid off. And we'll have to see what the next chapter holds for him. I do believe Ryan Clark is not done with media. He has his own podcast called The Pivot, which is a pretty big sports podcast. And I do think we will see Ryan Clark somewhere else. Christian, what do you think about the layoffs at ESPN? And if there's anyone else that you'd want to talk about, address it now.
No, I feel like we went over at least the main few. I'm honestly not shocked that Ryan Clark did get laid off. I thought it would happen way earlier. Like you said, he got into I'm not gonna say a fight, a scuffle with Peter Schrager on, I don't remember what show.
I think it was on Get Up.
It was on Get Up. The problem with that specifically, that can't happen on live TV because it completely derails all the analysts in any sport that didn't play the sport. That goes for basketball, football, hockey, any sport I didn't name, soccer. We have analysts that they do this for a living. They see all the stats. They watch every game just like these players that used to play did. But the problem is when you go into it thinking that, like you said, I'm a player, I know way more than you do, it completely derails ESPN, NFL, every single sports league. And in turn, it's kind of messed up because it is your coworker and you shouldn't belittle them, because in a way, I don't think he meant it to get off like that, but you're belittling your co-host when you do that. And I think ESPN, like you said, definitely was looking to lay him off for a while, and this might have been a great excuse to do it. In terms for all the other names, they're not I think Tom Pelissero is a massive name. So is Cam Newton, but like you said, Cam Newton has his own show. And I assume Tom Pelissero will be on another show very quickly. But it's definitely a scare for when it comes to NFL Network, because ESPN's been doing this for, at least they did it for basketball, so we'll see how they do it for the NFL. Yeah,
we will have to see what NFL Network will look like going into this season. I don't think they will lay off too many people going into this year, as they want to ensure a similar feeling for people who watch the network. And I do believe next year is where we will see a lot of personalities laid off. I could very much see guys like Michael Robinson, Maurice Jones-Drew being laid off. These guys that do these just, you go on NFL Network, there's a show always happening during the season, and they're just talking about football, which is why so many people love the network. But ESPN doesn't do that. ESPN, you look at First Take, you look at the Pat McAfee show, it is just yelling in your face, excitement, clickbait TV. And that's what ESPN wants. That's what they're moving towards. The days of Sports Center that we all grew up loving is pretty much over. You still very much do see it if you watch Sports Center at night. I feel like that is the really only like similar version to what Sports Center used to be when it first started out. And I do think we will be seeing that clickbait, excitement, debate, screaming stuff coming to NFL Network. If not this year, definitely next. And the biggest reason for these layoffs were supposedly Pat McAfee will be getting paid $60 million now. And that was also a very controversial thing, as I actually love Pat McAfee. I was watching Pat McAfee way back when he was just on YouTube. I really enjoyed Pat McAfee's show, and I still do. I just do not believe any analyst should be getting paid $60 million. That is more than some players make. And that is just ridiculous to me. And especially if the reason you're laying off personalities like, let's say, Tom Pelissero, who really getting laid off doesn't make any sense. As we said, Cam Newton and Ryan Clark kind of do, as one was in a part-time role and one's been a bit controversial. Now you're just laying off good personalities to pay somebody else more. Just doesn't make sense, and that has been the big controversy surrounding these ESPN layoffs, as a lot of people believe you should not be laying off good people just to pay somebody else more. If there are more reasons behind it, which I do think there are, and obviously they're just not going to be public, that's fine, but the public reason that a lot of fans have been seeing is that Pat McAfee is getting paid a lot of money, and ESPN can't afford to pay people like Tom Pelissero anymore. Christian, what do you think about ESPN paying Pat McAfee $60 million and this potentially being the reason why we're seeing all these layoffs?
I was going to touch on that because Pat McAfee, like you said, he started out not low because YouTube is still a big stream platform, but he's been on the rise. He's been on College Game Day. He's been all over NFL Network. He's been all over ESPN. I think ESPN is just trying to put him just like in the First Take spotlight. They're trying to make him the main focal focus, which I don't think is a terrible thing. But like you said, if it's at the expense of Tom Pelissero, then it becomes a problem, especially if you're a fan of NFL Network. But Pat McAfee, I really do enjoy him, so we'll see how this goes. I also don't think any analyst should be making $60 million a year. I don't know if that's a reported rumor or if that's actually happening. So we'll see how it works out. Hopefully it doesn't kill NFL vibes when it comes to NFL Network, so we'll see what happens.
We will have to see what these ESPN layoffs do look like in the future. We'll have to wait and see. But to conclude this episode, we are going to leave you here before our one last spitball of the episode with an update about the podcast. As you have definitely been seeing and listening, there is little to none NFL news going on. The NFL, as we've mentioned so many times, is just in a stalemate right now of stuff going on. Training camp, though, is right around the corner. In 2 weeks is when training camp and public training camps where fans can go see the training camps does start, and it'll be picking up, and the NFL steam will be going at full force. Therefore, we are leaving you today saying next week there will possibly not be an episode, and we're saying possibly as we mentioned at the start of the episode. We are waiting on the LeBron James news. That'll be the biggest news to talk about on a sports podcast like ours. So if LeBron James does sign in between now and next week, there will be an episode. You will be hearing from myself and Christian about what we think about LeBron going to the Heat, the Cavs, the Sixers, anywhere, the Warriors, wherever he goes. Retirement even, let's say, if that would be the biggest shock. So you will hear us next week if LeBron James does sign. However, if there is no news on LeBron, next week there will be no episode of SpitBallin', but we will be right back the following week, so do not worry. And in that following week, which would be August 3rd, we will be starting our coverage of fantasy football. We will be telling you guys our favorite players to go after in the early rounds, who we think the sleepers are and could be late round steals, and where to target certain rookies that are gaining a lot of hype heading into the fantasy season. So get excited about that. We're excited to give you our takes on fantasy football, as Christian and I are both very passionate about fantasy football and enjoy playing it every year. We will then also be going into how players are performing at training camp and following That episode, we will be then breaking down each division each week leading up to the start of week 1 at the NFL season, talking about who we think is going to win the division, who we think is going to be the worst, the potential breakout stars for each team in each division, and we will be really giving you guys a full analysis on how we think this season will shake out. And to close out the episode today, to get you excited for that fantasy football episode coming to you in 2 weeks, Christian, for our one last spitball, who do you think would be a steal in a fantasy football draft this year?
I go with Travis Etienne.
Travis Etienne, I like it. New team, and we'll see if he can put up the numbers that he did last year. Had a pretty successful fantasy season last year. And I'll definitely say for mine, I think Pat Freiermuth. I think with a coach like Mike McCarthy, you've seen what he could do with tight ends like Jake Ferguson and Dalton Schultz. I think Pat Freiermuth could be a breakout candidate at the tight end position. As always, you can listen to SpitBallin on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also find us on social media under the handle @PodSpitBallin on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. And as always, keep spitballing, everyone.